I've got them. Thank you
Okay.
from your meeting
All
invite.
right.
So I will call to order this financial subcommittee meeting for August 3rd of 2026 for the RWRAC. Jeanette, will you do the roll call for us?
Yes, ma'am. Matt Mathewson,
Here.
Eric Sulwald,
Here.
and Kirsten Wainsvik.
Here.
And we are missing Sheila and Catlow, but we do have a quorum.
Excellent. Then I will start with the virtual meeting reminders. Just a quick reminder to please mute your microphones to help ensure we don't have any feedback or other background noises to interfere with the speaker. The committee member would like to ask a question, use the raise your hand feature, and remember to lower your hand once your question has been addressed. When you're ready to speak, make sure you unmute your microphone, and especially during votes, and then remute when finished. As a reminder, audience members are only permitted to speak during the call to audience unless called upon by the committee, and this meeting is being recorded to satisfy open meeting law requirements. So with that, let's move to the Pledge of Allegiance. So, pledge allegiance to the flag
of
of the
United
States of America and to the
to
republic
the republic
for which it stands, one
one
nation,
nation,
under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
liberty,
and justice for all.
justice for all.
Excellent. All right, so with that, let's do the call to the audience if there are any audience members that wish to speak. I don't believe there are any online. Okay, so with that, let's move to a safety share. If somebody has got a good one.
We've been using a good one this morning on some earlier meetings that school is starting back up at many locations, so be extra vigilant of kids and school buses and don't run the school bus stop sign. So be super cautious. That's it.
Right. Let's go with that. Thank you very much, Jackson. Timely reminder. Yes, I think schools do start in the next couple days for many districts. With that, let's move to approval of the minutes. If everyone got a chance to read the minutes, I did. I did not have any edits to make. Did anybody have any?
Matt had two spelling corrections that I've already made.
Great. Okay.
With that, I move we approve the minutes as amended.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There aren't any. So minutes pass. So with that, let's just move right into discussion of the rate workbook, which will be, it's technically first, but probably in tandem with the financial plan discussion from Art Curon. And Art, thank you so much for getting these to us. And thank you for the additional 5-year outlook. I just want to start with that as well. That was super helpful. I did my homework. I hope everybody else tried anyway. It took me about an hour and a half to try and dice through this a little bit. I don't know that I got it all, but I'm tracking most things. So Art, bring us up to speed in whatever way seems best.
Would you like me to
Thank
share?
Yes.
Or...
Yeah,
absolutely.
sure. You can do it or I can do it, Jeanette. It doesn't matter. But I just want to say real quickly some opening comments. The financial plan should not have changed from what we presented at the last full RWRAC, with the exception of we went out that additional 5 years. So the committee could see the impact over the full 10-year, which is going to incorporate the life of the project from the SRRF perspective. It should encompass all the pre-work that's happening now, the design, the construction, and then it should encompass the operating, beginning to operate that facility as well. I do want to make sure that we have this conversation that's forthcoming with the understanding that this is a forecast and these numbers are very likely going to change. I think we all hope that they're going to change to the good, which would benefit the rate workbook. But we, obviously we don't know where things are going to turn in the next, I can't forecast the next 6 months, let alone the next 18 to 24 that will be involved in this pre-planning and design phase with the SRRF. So that being said, we did send the rate workbook with the additional 5 years. We also sent the financial plan. Michelle couldn't be with us today. She's taking a well-earned vacation. She's up in Flagstaff, so we'll try to get through without her today. Couple of things that we didn't incorporate in this plan, but I want the committee to start thinking about with respect to the O&M. I think things that we need to keep on our radar moving forward are the O&M assumption that we have in here. Is that enough for Jackson? Are we marrying up this the assumption set that we're using here in wastewater with what we're doing in the general fund? And I say that primarily because we have a 5-year forecast now in the general fund, which the county, to my understanding, did not have prior to me coming on board. We have that now. We are forecasting 5% increases in personnel in the general fund for the next 5 years. And so if we're forecasting that in the general fund, for example, we need to be doing that in all of the other funds where we forecast, right? Because if we do that for Jackson in the wastewater fund, and that's not factored in here, that obviously impacts his O&M expenses. And so if we're giving 5%, but we're only doing 3% here, there's going to be a genuine mismatch. So I don't want to focus on that today. I just want to put that out there. We're also, for example, I think we have a 4% inflation factor for utilities, not knowing what Southwest Gas might do, or TEP, or our friends across the plaza at Tucson Water with their, we can more easily predict what they're doing because they put it out for, I think, at 3 or 4 year periods. But are we being consistent with how we're applying that in the wastewater fund, right? If we know that those expenses are coming, it would be prudent for us to incorporate those in our assumption set as well. So that's something that I have challenged my staff with, and making sure that what we're doing in the general fund mirrors, what we're doing in wastewater, because wastewater would have to absorb that, right? And so with with not wanting to increase rates, especially in this current rate period, we need to be cognizant of what we're doing on that side. And that is something that I personally learned through this budget cycle and working with Jackson and Jaime. And so I'm very aware of that. And so we're doing that on our end. Again, not something for today's discussion, but just want to put that on our radar as we look out. And again, all of these assumptions are subject to change, and this forecast is going to change. But it did not change except for the 5 years that we went out beyond what we shared at the last full meeting of the RWRAC. With that, I'll open it up to any questions or comments, and we can have the dialogue. Or actually, let me pause there. I see your hand, Kirsten. Jackson, you have any comments before we get going, Jaime?
Yeah, I just want to make sure we get those assumptions, like you said, the 5% wage, and then whatever you're doing on the other utilities, so we can start putting that into our own model, as we're planning for the next 5 years. So that's my only comment right now, but it sounds good.
Mine was just a follow-up question to that. Which line would those affect? I'm assuming it's that operation and maintenance cost line. Is that
Yes,
basically
that's correct.
those costs would be rolled into that, increasing those costs? Okay, perfect. I just want to make
Correct.
a little note to
Yeah.
myself. That does seem prudent to more accurately basically predict some of those costs into that line in future models. Okay, carry on.
Yeah, so I mean, I was gonna, unless you want me to walk through it, but I was just gonna open it up to the committee on what comments or questions they had. And we just have a discussion.
That sounds fine. I mean, I think the three of us that are in attendance have seen this before, at least a model similar to this in the last 1 or 2 years. I don't know, off the top of my head, I went back to our white paper, looked up, our 4, whatever we call those pillars, and noted, yeah, rating agency ratios, you're striving to keep that at 1.3, so check. Notice that the unrestricted cash balance line down there's a few places in the early years, it looks like we're toying with that 50K. There's a 45 and a 49 in fiscal year 27, 28, and 28, 29, but it actually reads that we're trying to keep it around 50. So it didn't give me too much heartburn to see it dip just a little bit. I'll be interested to know other committee members' thoughts on that. In the out years, I noted that that same line dips to 40, even with the rate increase assumption that it looks like is up there. So that's something we need to keep an eye on, but that's so far out. I don't know that we need to have heartburn today over that. We just need to be cognizant that that could happen. I assume we're still limiting the term of the debt to 15 years, particularly the Saudita. I know there was some discussion of openness to something else, but I didn't hear anything different on that. And through the financial plan, I saw, yeah, that we're using excess cash to prepay debt. So it looked like all of those pillars are being honored with some potential rate increases, which folks on this committee have said that, I don't know, open to some end over year recommendations on that. So I don't know. Yeah, Eric, you go. What are your initial thoughts? Those are mine, and they weren't hugely concerned.
Thank you. Couple of points. We're obviously gonna have to go to the public in 28, 29 to set up the rate increase starting 29, 30. And is the idea, I realize it's out a couple of years, we're gonna have to massage that. But is the idea then to put it out so that we have a 5 or 6 year window that says we're gonna raise rates 2% every year for the next 3% for the 29, 30, but after that 2%, is that kind of your thinking now, or are we going to massage that, maybe push it up so we don't have the 40, we're in the low 40s at the bottom line?
That's a good question, and I think Jackson and I will sort of tag team this. I don't know if I don't know how Jackson feels. I know personally, I think the strategy of going out for a multi-year rate increase, from an operational perspective, makes a lot of sense. As long as we're being prudent with our assumption set, prudent and realistic, I think is a really good word, I think, in this circumstance. Taking that bite of the apple, so to speak, with the public and the board at one time is preferential from my perspective, with the understanding that we can pivot as we need to if markets change or our circumstances change. So I would be in favor of going out, much like we did the first year I was here, for a multi-year rate increase where we look at whether it's a flat percentage over the course of 3 years, or if we say it's 1% in 1 year and then another maybe lower percent and step down in years 2 and 3. We can massage that, but I'm a supporter of going out for a multi-year rate increase to the extent that the utility needs one, and we will unequivocally need one in those years. So that's just my perspective. I think we can work together to ensure that the narrative aligns with what we need from a financial sustainability perspective.
Yeah, Art, thank you. I appreciate looking at this over the longer term, as you have done. I'm also in agreement that having a steady rate increase over time is much more preferable, because it provides both stability to the department and stability to the ratepayers, our stakeholders. I'm wondering if we took a look in another area, not here, but in an area of growth. I'm anticipating to see growth in the Sahuarita, Green Valley, south of Green Valley here, to see growth become more prominent. And therefore, they're going to be adding needs to that new wastewater plant that is being started now. And I think that we need to be prudent, as you said, Art, in our financing to be able to upgrade the plant as required and have the funds coming in. I'd almost like to see some type of small reserve for that down the road, but not now, but down the road, once we get that plant up and operating, that we'd have a reserve build up so when we're ready to start, we've got some money in the hole to take care of the beginning stages as we move forward. And that might come, some of that money might come from the connection fee, because the connection fee, people are buying into that. And as Jaime and Jackson have started down here, when they put in the Santa Rita Highlands, Block 27 South, those two areas are going to have a $6,000 add-on to their connection fee. That's going to help pay for the extension of that line. But I think that same philosophy can be used up in the Sahuarita area, where FICO's orchards, as they get chopped down and turned into houses, that same philosophy can be used up there.
Yeah, that's a good point, Eric. And I think, when we look at our total assumption set on a yearly basis, I think we've used the University of Arizona economic estimates that Thomas Hammond and his group put out, and you see the growth, the population growth factor there. And I think I need to defer to Jackson we need to be looking holistically at the growth rate of the entire region. And if the population growth is being driven by Sahuarita, that's great. But we also want to make sure that it's not being offset by lack of growth in other areas, right? So I do think we need to take a look at that, especially if we're anticipating that much growth down south in Green Valley and Sahuarita. The other thing I'll note is I don't believe that the revenue estimates out in the 5 and the beyond 5 and then the 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year area include any revenue from what we might do as a what is it called, a DMZ area, Jackson. So because we just don't know where those agreements are right now and haven't factored that in. And so as we get more information, as this becomes more of a construction project rather than a planning project at this point, we'll be able to incorporate those revenues into the document.
Yeah, I think, Art, I
DMA?
think you're hitting
Is that
on
what you meant?
Yeah.
Art?
DMA, yes, I'm sorry.
I think you're hitting on a couple of very good points, Art, and thank you for that. I think, based upon what I have heard people in the government for the town of Sahuarita, they're anticipating down the road, potentially take some time, the 35,000 homes. That's going to have a major impact on everything. And with that, that plant, we're kind of that plant is going to be a plant on its own. It's not like Agua Nueve or Trace and all of that. It is a standalone area. It doesn't have any connection to anybody else at this point in time, nor do I anticipate that it will. It's just going to be everything pretty much south of Pima Mine Road. And that portion of the county that is going to be developing. And so I think we need to carefully look at that area as it develops that we're planning out. All of the stakeholders are paying for this, but the beneficiary is going to be Sahuarita. And that beneficiary, they're going to be able to see their property values increase because that plant is there, and all of the work that started now is just going to increase the value down the road. Thank you.
Matt, do you have any thoughts? Usually you have lots of insights into the math of these,
Yeah,
these kinds of spreadsheets.
just a couple things that have been commented on, the cash surplus levels. I don't have any problem with us dipping below the 50 million level, even as much as down to 40. So I think that's a reserve level that's more than adequate. And I don't start getting concerned about it until it goes over 50 million, frankly, and then I look to see what any reductions might do to our debt ratio. But as long as the debt ratio is at or near 130, I think that's the prime driver, and our cash surplus pillar is a little more flexible than that is. On the multi-year steady increases, as I see this particular financial plan, it just kind of teases that, and I think if we're serious about having that be part of the long-term strategy, I would suggest that we address it a little more forthrightly in the plan, and make the case about inflation, and make the case about the other forecasting numbers that the general fund's using, and just be straightforward about it, and tee it up a little bit better than what we've got in the stock plan that we're dealing with so far. So I'm certainly not opposed to doing that. Again, as long as we keep our eye on the 1.3 level, and I think the better we, as I said, better we tee it up and prepare for what's coming, the easier it'll be for everybody to accept down the road.
Madam Chair, may I chime in?
Oh, sure, go ahead, Art.
I think that's really a really great idea, Matt. But I want to make sure that we're not putting that ahead of what we've put out, especially to the committee. I've shared those thoughts with county administration, and they're initially supportive of it, but I need to make sure that I run the numbers and we incorporate those numbers. I want to make sure that we're doing it judiciously. And so I don't think it belongs in this financial plan. I had envisioned kind of running my own scenario, if you will, to make sure, like, hey, how does this impact wastewater? What would we need to do if we adopted the general fund rate set not rate set, but the general fund assumption set here, where it's appropriate for the fund. And so I think we need to do it judiciously. I'm just teeing this up with you guys now because I do anticipate as we move into FY 28 planning, which is basically already, I mean, I just put this other budget to bed here last month and I'm already looking at what's happening in FY 28. And we'll begin to do our work together as a committee, as a subcommittee, and then as a full committee sometime in October, November, or the November, December timeframe leading into that January rate setting period or rate workbook period. So I do think it is a good idea. I would caution us about including it in this particular financial plan because it has not been fully vetted with county admin. We have not discussed it as a full committee. And so while I do want to move in that direction, it's really just laying the foundation today for what that might look like. So I appreciate those comments and I'll turn it back over.
I'm good with that too. And so if that's the idea, then I just say, let's be careful not to tease it. Like, I mean, when I read what we've got, we've said, we're going to raise, fees, 3% annually and thereafter. I think there's words like that in the plan. So if we can just make it clear that we're in the years that we're talking about, it's just the years addressed by this plan going up to fiscal 30.
Yeah.
Perfect. My comments were just going to be supporting what Matt said, and kind of what Art is getting at here, as well as, Art, would you be able to begin to incorporate some of those admin assumptions in this next financial plan? I mean, you're talking about kind of running a parallel version a little bit to see what it does, it sounds like.
I will be able to have those ready in time for our 28 workbook discussion in January.
You will. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's wise as well. So I also concur with some of those ideas and concur with the idea of going to the board, going to the public like we did last year all at once for multi-year. I concur with that. We saw just how many folks attended those meetings, those public stakeholder meetings. So it will probably be similar. And if we need to go the more aggressive to the 3% over even the 2% that we've got modeled in here because of some of the O&M costs, let's just do it. And if it's 6 years, let's just declare it, whatever it needs to be. Yeah, Matt, I think you're right. Just kind of bite the bullet, show the numbers on the table, and just go after it if that's what we need to do. So that's all. I was just also supporting that direction of discussion. Eric.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. You hit on something that I hadn't figured out how to say it. You said it well. And Art, I think we're caught in kind of a rock and a hard place. You're really planning on a 5-year budget plan, and that thing keeps moving forward. But in reality, this committee is looking at stretching that out 10 years. And I would ask for 2 things. One is, I think we need to have a heart-to-heart with the full committee and say, hey, here's how the finance side looks at this. And this is important because if we go out for a rate increase in 2028 or for 2029, 30, you really are going to look at a longer term. You're going to look at the 5 years, and we really are looking at stretching it out 6 years. So I think that if the full committee has the value added information, they will be much more receptive to it and be able to explain it. I also think that some of that could be very nicely used at our highly anticipated rate increase workshops that we have around the county. You know, I'd also hope that this next time we go for a rate increase, that we have some type of open meeting in the Sahuarita Green Valley area because of the new plant and all. And I think there's be some explanations and some backup. You know, I applaud Jackson in the fact that he went for 7 years without having to go out for a rate increase. But we also know that when you do go for a long period, people get hung up at that period and say, gee, no rate increase, no rate increase. Oops, we're getting a rate increase. What happened? And so by having it out, it's kind of like putting the frog in the pot of cold water and turning the heat on rather than just dropping it in when it's boiling. And so Art, you've done a very good job of setting this up. I appreciate it. I enjoyed reading the plan and trying to understand all of the perspectives. I don't, but I will over time learn more from you and how you visually look at these things. Thank you.
Hey guys, this is Jackson. I'm just gonna jump in. I had to deal with something, so I might have missed if you guys were calling on me for anything. But I was listening for the most part, but I'm in between two things I had to do. But Eric, on your comment, I am, Jaime and I are on the calendar. I think it's November is a Green Valley Council meeting to talk about this plant and, when they get some more snowbirds back, start coming back, and they asked us to plan on being on the agenda and tell them what's going on. And I met with them and Supervisor Christie, some of the reps of the council and Supervisor Christie, and they all seem very supportive in the general discussion we had, but they'd love to share that information. So we will, Jaime and I will probably partner and perform that later this year. And then as far as continuous rate increase or multiple rate increases, I love that idea. And I hope, that's more of a detailed conversation, but I hope we get into, let's kind of assume it's going to be very close to an inflationary value increase, but each year we'd look at it and tweak it as necessary, up or down, but it'd be too much to ask, but we'll discuss that at a future time. Other than that, let me know if there was any questions you had and I'll try and answer them.
Thank you, Jackson. I plan to attend that meeting in November. Art, one other question for you, and this is a loaded one. It's a double-barreled shotgun deal. If we were to go out and say we will put in a 4% increase year over year, but it is our desire not to use the full 4%. I'm trying to balance that out, how some people think about, if you have a 4%, the department says, oh, great, we got money, we can do these things. On the other hand, looking at it from the ratepayer side is, do you need it all? Do you need all of it? And I wondered if there's more flexibility in that and all. I don't expect you to answer it right now, but it's a thought in my process.
So can I ask a follow-up question on that? So just so I'm clear, you want to look at a model or a scenario where we ask for a rate increase that is maybe in excess of what we might need?
Yeah, your rate book right now, stretched out 10 years, you're showing a 2% in the back half. And I'm fine with that. I can understand that. I can live with that. I can talk about it and all of that. If you made it 4% and then put the onerous on the department to say, look, there is 4% here. We don't expect you to grab all 4%. We want you to be fiscally responsible and do what you can to keep that below 4. So when the rate goes out in July for the next year, it might only be a 2.25% rather than a 4.
So they'd have an option to back down.
You'd have an option to back down. However, I'm always in the position of looking out, and I like to look in large number of years and say, okay, if something were to hit and we needed the money, we have a little cushion to work with there. That's all.
Yeah, we could look at that, Eric.
I don't want to put a lot of work on you, please.
No. I think it's a worthwhile discussion, almost like a not to exceed amount, a not to exceed percentage. I think from a budgetary perspective, that can start to get challenging. I think the narrative to our public in terms of, well, how did you pick what rate increase you're using? Yeah, that starts to get challenging. Helping our elected officials understand the complexities in that type of rate structure could be challenging, would be concerning to me. But I'm not saying it can't be looked at. I think there are several complexities and challenges that would be incorporated in that type of structure. And let me just back up a little bit. The 2% that we're putting in there, that's really, I don't think that's anything more than what's probably absolutely needed, and probably just, and it's not even, we're not even meeting, because in the out years, that unrestricted cash balance dips below 50 million. I do want to take a moment here to remind the committee that we actually codified our reserve policy with the Board of Supervisors. So it is now a Board of Supervisor policy. Pretty sure in that policy we say 50 million. So we have to make sure that we're meeting all of these commitments to the board. So 2% probably doesn't even get us in compliance with our own policies, but it was a placeholder to get to 1.3, right? And so that's one of our primary pillars. But I mean, there's so much that's going to change between right now and 26 and what happens in 30 and 31. And Jackson and Jaime, I know, are doing a really good job of trying to drive down costs on this facility, which is going to impact what we do on the debt and the debt service requirements. Jackson and his team do a good job of monitoring their O&M budget to make sure that they are keeping a close watch on that, because they know how much that impacts the rate. And then we're talking about revenues as well. So yeah, and our biggest revenue lever is the rates. So there's a lot of components to it. Eric, I just want to wrap up. I'm not saying that we probably can't look at that. I just think there's some inherent challenges with communication, with clarity, with budgeting, and how the department would handle that if we were to adopt such a scenario. But we can keep it on the table and have that in the back of our mind as we begin to prepare these 28 and 29 rate workbooks.
Thank you.
And Eric, I'm jumping in just, if to me, that's a really tough message for the Board of Supervisors to give you like a 4%, and, it's the department's goal and effort to come in less than that. But the messaging is that, hey, board, you're just giving them more than they probably even need, type of thing. And, the sensitivities, and for you guys to say that, well, our business very intimately, whereas most of the public has no idea. So it's just going to be a tough message, I think, but be interesting conversation nonetheless. But definitely, for those appointed by board members, you might have that conversation, see what they think, and you get good feedback, I'm sure, one way or the other. That's all.
I was just going to say, interesting thought
Jackson.
experiment idea, Eric, for sure, the not to exceed. As Jackson points out, I mean, maybe just even tracking with a reasonable inflation assumption of whatever that is expected to be. Is that 3%, 3.5%, and just laying it at the feet of inflation, maybe the easiest sell, which may hit fairly close, Eric, to what it would end up being under your not to exceed with option to back down. Kind of an idea anyway. I have one question and then just one other thing as well. Art, in the very far out years, there's 3 bright yellow $10,000. It looks like it's probably prepayment. Is that just a blanket assumption? Like they don't know what to assume, and so they just threw some numbers in there, kind of a
Yeah,
thing.
because
Is that why they're
it's
bright
gonna
yellow?
it's gonna be bright yellow. She called those out because we really don't know.
Yeah.
If we don't have available cash, that number's not gonna be in there, right? If we don't have available cash to defease, then we you know, it's really an unknown. And I think Michelle just included it in there to say, you know, we don't know what it's gonna look like in 30, and we probably wouldn't, right? Looking at 33, that $10 million use of cash
Yeah.
brings us below our projected or our required balance. So that's why that's called out.
And I don't want to cut anybody's further discussion of this off by any means. I just wanted to ask the question to the committee, to the finance group, of what you need from this committee. And I'm guessing that you need, or it might be prudent, if nothing else, maybe you don't need it anymore because it's already passed, but it might be prudent for us to go ahead and vote on what we're seeing here, and saying, yep, we agree with what the department has done, or not, and having that vote like we normally would have had if it had been earlier in the spring. Does that make sense to the other committee members? Shall we eventually, by the end of this meeting, have such a vote to say, yep, we've looked at it, and kind of document that none of us really had major concerns with this financial plan and this rate workbook for what has already happened. Go ahead, Jackson, please.
Yeah, just another comment that came up earlier that I didn't comment on yet was, I think Art said, use the term DNZ, but we got that special extra premium that Eric talked about for the growth area south of Green Valley on the west side of the interstate. And that's not going to be like year 8, 9, and 10. I mean, of course it will be, but it's going to be here, that pipeline will be in service within 2 years. And so we're going to start collecting that before the new plant's built. That's going to be going to Green Valley initially, but it's going to be extra revenue that we should at least have a conversation about. And, also the growth rates, Eric mentioned, well, maybe Sarita and Green Valley South are going to really pick up. And yeah, we've used the U of A, almost for the last many years, it's been around that 1% value, but Marana for many years was well above that. It was just like a whole system average. And so these small individual plants, I think we could take a look at specific growth expectations or estimations for any of these places that might have a different impact on the revenues and that type of thing. Cost also, but definitely revenues. I'll shut up.
Jackson, when you said the extra revenues, are you talking about the extra fees on, I think it's Canoa, is it Canoa Ranch, or is it
yeah, with that
it's one of those
pipeline
down south. Yeah.
Yeah, the pipeline that's going in, it's some developments on
The
the west side of
lots.
the interstate. They're paying an extra, I think it was $6,000 on top of the connection fee. So
Right.
yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
And I'm sorry, I'm not pegging the right. I don't know that I've got the right development, but yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I think it's in our minutes. if I looked at them
It's Santa
faster.
Rita. It's the
Thank
Santa
you.
Rita Highlands.
Highlands, there it is.
Yep.
Thank you very
Yep.
much. So
And
extra
then-
revenue for the Santa Rita Highlands isn't in here either. Okay, that's a good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Eric, go ahead if you had comments on anything that Jackson just brought up.
Yeah, my question comes back to we're only gonna vote on, or at least represent the 5-year. We're not looking at the
Yep.
5 out years. You
Correct.
just want just on the front 5. And I'm
Just like
fine
we
with
would
that.
have done, just like we would have
Right.
done had it been in April, which normally it would have been,
Right.
or maybe even
Okay.
March.
Yeah,
It just
I'm
seems
good
like
with that.
procedurally that's what we ought to do, to have a yay or nay vote among the now 4 of us, hello Sheila, that are here. And then most of our discussion today has been about the out years and the reality that we are, can see by this model that Art has provided to us. which is a bit of a crystal ball, but at least it gives us some projections on where things are going. So, I mean, at some point, if someone wants to make a motion that we go ahead and do such a vote, I just don't know that our discussions are done yet. I want to give everybody a chance to talk about the first 5 years and the projected 5 years both. Matt, go ahead.
Just one other topic I'd like to address from the plan that we haven't really talked about. And, you know, towards the end of the draft plan, I'm going to try to find it here while I'm talking, where we discuss the debt covenant and the 1.2 requirement. As I was reading that, I thought, you know, we don't demonstrate anywhere that that we're meeting that, and since it's a different computation than our normal credit agency debt service ratio, I'm wondering if we ought to just include something that does provide that demonstration that you know, it's not necessarily an automatic requirement, or not an automatic satisfaction of that when we meet the 1.3. So I'm just thinking something, and it could just, I don't know whether a table or just text would be sufficient, but just something that says, yes, we have satisfied that obligation to the debt holders.
What page or section was that on, if you were able
You know,
to find it, Matt?
talking about on page 20, it talks about the 1.2. I guess that's the last page in the whole plan.
Yeah, let me address that if I might. There's a sentence here that I think encapsulates what Matt is trying to say. It's page 22 of the document, but I think it's page 20 of the plan because of the first few pages. By setting rates to maintain a rating agency debt service ratio at 1.3 or greater, the county will comply with the required debt covenant ratio. I think that is sufficient, but if
So
there's a table,
that is a fact then, even when we're adding in the unrestricted cash balance in the numerator, as long as we're hitting that 1.3 on the other ratio, we will always hit the 1.2.
well, there's the rating agency debt service, and then there's the sewer obligation. So yes, I think that sentence there satisfies the debt service ratio.
Okay.
I don't think
I don't-
anything
I-
further, I don't think any further tables are needed or explanations. I think it's clear,
I see.
it's concise, I said yes, so
So
If-
yeah, we
if-
and I guess our white paper does mention both of those, but we've said that we'll always meet 1.3, which is a higher standard. So by default,
Correct.
because 1.3 is a higher standard than 1.2, therefore,
but it's computed differently. So that was my concern, that
oh, because of the unrestricted cash
Because of the
balances and the
unrestricted cash.
numerated, yeah.
yeah.
yeah, it's factored in.
Okay, as long as that's an accurate statement and there's no circumstance where the unrestricted cash would be so, what is it, high or low? I guess it's so,
It's so the formula is actually the rating agency debt service ratio that we maintain is a higher standard because we're not able to take in the unrestricted cash balances, where the debt service covenant ratio allows you to bring in that extra source. We're saying the rating agency debt service ratio, we just want to make sure that our net revenues against our debt service payments are equal to 1.3. The obligation debt service ratio is allowing you to bring in your operating revenues plus any unrestricted cash that you have over your debt service payment. So it's actually a lower standard, if you will. And so we maintain a standard that is higher than that to ensure that we're always complying with the debt service ratio.
so the debt
and our
service ratio will always be bigger than the agency, or the obligation ratio will always be higher than the agency ratio? When you do the math, if you've got a 1.3 agency ratio, then your
Your debt service
obligation
ratio,
is going to be bigger.
it should be, yeah.
Okay.
And we almost always try to keep it 50,000 of unrestricted cash anyway. So that's almost even every year over year, right? Generally speaking.
Generally.
Hmm.
Okay.
All right. Any other discussions, comments, questions on financial plan? Anything else we've discussed today? Is there a
So
motion?
I guess
Yeah, go ahead.
let me look at right where the recommendations are at the very beginning. Okay, that's one page I wanted to look at. So the in the key assumptions, where it says, in fact, it's the third bullet down, an increase to the connection fee, sewer volume fee, and service charge of 3% annually beginning in 29. So to me, that's part of the teeing up of our steady year over year increases, that if we're not going to go there, I don't see a reason to include a statement quite, to the extent where it's beginning to talk about indefinite increases. I'm thinking we should put some sort of limit on that, whether it's just language saying, for this planning period, or until 30, something that defines the term of that assumption.
I might even make it more broad if I may, Matt, and say continued evaluation of the assumptions tied to connection fee, sewer volume fee, and service charge rates. Because I don't know that we know where that's going to be right now. Right now, it's that percentage, but depending on how things shake out over the next 2 fiscal years, it could be lower than that. It could be higher than that. We might just not even want to put a percentage of a number percentage there, make the statement even more broad than that. But I defer to the committee.
And I think I'd rather see that than the specific 3%, I guess.
I guess the 3% is trying to get at exactly what's happening in 2930, was the
Yes,
intent of
that-
writing
that-
it there.
That's exactly
Um,
what it was doing.
But yeah, rewriting it to say 3% in 29-30 with future years to be evaluated. I mean, some edit like that could be done just to acknowledge
Yes.
that 3% is in the 5 years we're looking at, that we're voting on. But
But
in
not,
the out years, we have a projection and some knowledge that it will continue to increase. We just don't know how much yet.
yeah,
Sheila, did you want to jump in?
No, that took care of it. Thank you.
yeah, I
So do you-
agree with that approach.
Do you want to move that get changed and then potentially we have an adoption with edits, sort of a
I
deal?
think just making the recommendation to finance and having Art make revisions is okay. I don't think a motion is required.
Okay. I mean,
Jeanette, did you-
only that we might be voting to adopt this whole thing with edits.
But you wouldn't be voting to adopt this. You would be voting
Or-
to
Or
recommend it to the full committee.
that's what I mean. I'm sorry. Yes. Endorse.
Could we look at the page before, a comment in the same kind of context? So recommendation number 3, request,
If you're gonna
Sorry.
change the bullet below that, this probably makes sense too.
yeah, okay. Yeah, those would be my only 2 comments, where I thought we might want to do some slight changing of the plan.
Jeanette, did you write down the specific language? Because I did not.
It will be in the transcripts and I'll send it to you.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Right, any further discussion? Or maybe we do go ahead and do the vote to endorse.
Do you have a motion?
I need one.
Okay,
And just to clarify, the motion will be to endorse or recommend the financial plan as revised
Yes.
during this meeting to the full RAC committee. It'll be something along those lines.
Yes, and the financial plan and the rate workbook both, I believe, that goes with it. The 5-year rate workbook specifically.
Yes, ma'am.
Eric, I don't know if you got all that. That's the motion we need.
also move.
Okay.
I'll
That's
second.
good, Eric.
The transcript will reign.
Okay, so the motion is for the subcommittee to recommend the 5-year rate workbook and the financial plan as revised during this meeting to the full committee. Did that encompass it all?
Yeah, I think you need to specify that it's the 2026 financial plan.
Gotcha. All right. So Eric has so moved.
And I'll second.
Okay, all in favor of making such a recommendation to the RAC? Say aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Hooray. That's awesome. Thank you, Art, for the great ideas for our next round, which starts now. And we'll be talking about this fall, but maybe it'll be an easier process. It's been a year.
It has been. I appreciate this committee hanging with us and giving us the time and space to do the scenario analysis. And I'm glad we were able to get to a place where we can all agree and really appreciate the time commitment and working with this committee on it.
Thank you. So with that, meeting schedule, I don't see a specific reason to meet again until we have more things to discuss. Does anyone foresee? And normally, when would that be? It would be in my mind, it typically is later this fall, or maybe even in the new year when we have what's
Last year
normal.
you guys met January, February, November and December. The year before that was January, February, April.
We were working on our
September, November,
pillars.
December, so probably not till the fall.
Yeah, it seems like it. So, and agenda items, I don't know about agenda items specifically, but in the minutes that we just adopted today, there is that follow-on thing about as the DMA gets revised, that Jaime will at some point bring that information to
Right.
the RAC. So just keep that in mind as an agenda or a follow-up item at some point when that negotiation gets finished. Other than that, I don't know of agenda items until we have new rates that Art is going to stand up here in the fall. Eric, do you have any ideas, nominations? See your hand up.
You're muted, hon.
Thank you, Jeanette. One of the things that I don't want to have happen is what happened this year. In January, the Capital Improvement Program Committee met and had a bunch of information. And then they met on a Friday, we met on a Monday, and we didn't have some of that cost information available to us. So I want to be able to be sure that we're up to date where the capital improvement side is looking at for their expenditures so that we can work with that and we're not floating in two different levels.
So basically you're saying you just want us to organize the meetings a little bit better for transfer of info?
Yeah, if
Okay.
I would say that if the capital improvement committee met, we ought to have at least a week's time so that stuff can be set out and we can pick up on some of the information so that we have separation. Maybe it's important for us to meet ahead of them and tell them they have no money. I don't know.
Well, and there's discussion, right, of their values, but of course their minutes don't get approved until I
Till the
don't know
next meeting.
Right. So how do we get that information other than I guess we individually go watch
Well, usually it's
YouTube?
when they give the update at the next coming meeting is usually how that, the same with you. Whatever happens here, you will pass that on to CIP at the next RAC meeting on the 27th when you give the
Sure.
financial subcommittee update.
But that update is general, and I think Eric's getting at specifics of specific CIP projects. And sometimes those summaries are not as detailed as maybe what comes
Right.
out of the actual meeting, and that's more of the issue.
Hey guys, can I interrupt? I need to step
Sure.
off of here unless you need me anymore. I'm going to jump off. All right.
That's fine. Thank you, Jackson.
Thank
All
you,
right. You have a wonderful
Jackson.
day. Thanks. Bye bye.
Have a good day, Jack.
You all too. Bye bye.
I guess
Then
there's
I would
information that we
suggest-
could do. Yeah, just watch the YouTubes if they get posted.
Exactly. I would suggest go to the RAC internet page and you can see the meeting recording directly from there.
Okay, so maybe Jeanette, just let us know as we're,
So
doing these, if there's one that
I'll
gets
make sure to keep
posted.
you in the
Yeah,
loop when it's scheduled.
Yep.
And
And
I'll
those
do
are-
the vice versa as well,
And
so that
you
they're
can
in the
watch
loop
those
of when you're.
on 1.3. You can have them all sound like chipmunks. I've done that before to get a summary.
Hey, sometimes the volume, for some reason, certain people sound like chipmunks, and I have no idea why.
I get the information just fine watching it at extra speeds or even 1.5. But okay, yeah, I guess that's just a request then, Eric. I think that's a smart idea, is just to make
Yeah.
sure that we have the opportunity if individuals want to go in and find out what's going on that other committee that dovetails into what we're trying to do here. Yeah. Okay, with that, then shall we just leave that hanging until we find something to meet about and when later this
Mhm.
fall? Let's just move on to the call to the audience then, if there's any audience members that don't think so. But right, hearing none, do I have an emotion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
All right, all in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye.
Bye.
Hey,
All
and
right.
Kirsten, you get to get away early.
I do. I was, you know, when one of these comes out and we've had lots of discussion, I didn't know one way or another if this was going to go long or short. Short was my hope, and you guys met that. So thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you
you.
all.
You as well.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Before you
Bye-bye.
leave, Kirsten,
Oh, it's okay. Let's
my neighbor, the clerk said hi.
Keith, the clerk. Okay.
Yeah,
Very
he lives
nice.
2 doors down.
Tell him hello. Thank you.
I will,
Bye-bye.
yeah. He remembers you in your office, and
Nice.
he wanted to pass on your, congratulations on your move.
Oh, thank you. All righty. Thanks again.
Talk to you
Bye-bye.
later. Thank you.